The air in the meeting room seemed to thicken with each passing minute. I sat at the long oak conference table, my tablet placed right in front of me, trying to capture every word Sterling Maddox said. My boss spoke slowly, stressing each phrase as if he had already pictured how it would appear in the minutes. "Shipments must be approved before the 15th, he said, his eyes sweeping around the conference table. "No delays." "Nyla, note this as a separate item." I nodded, but at that very moment my fingers suddenly felt heavy. The keys on the screen seemed to drift farther away, and the lines of text began to dance before my eyes. I tried to focus, but the sensation only got worse. A sharp pain jolted through my temple. A strange pressure tightened around my chest, as if someone had set a stone on my ribs and was slowly pressing down. "It'll pass," I told myself. "I'm just sleep-deprived." But it didn't pass, and that was only the beginning of a chain of events that forced me to face the truth. The man I loved, the man I trusted most, was little by little destroying my health. And the tool he used? It was the very bracelet he gave me. A gift I once thought was a symbol of love. The past 2 weeks had truly worn me down. Quarterly reports, negotiations with a new partner, back-to-back calls without end, and mountains of paperwork waiting to be signed. I was used to that intensity. Being an executive assistant to the director of a major logistics company demanded absolute dedication. Sterling Maddox was demanding, but fair. He valued my punctuality, my ability to anticipate what he needed, and the fact that I could handle dozens of tasks at once. In 3 years at the company, I had become an indispensable link. I knew every corner of the paperwork system, remembered the names of key clients, and could coordinate multiple departments at the same time. My colleagues trusted me for my professionalism and calm, even in the most chaotic situations. But today, something was very wrong. I looked toward Sterling. He kept talking, his hand gestures steady. "Vanessa, HR needs to be involved in the staffing expansion. We'll need 2 more customer relationship managers, preferably with international logistics experience." Vanessa Maddox, the HR director and also Sterling's younger sister, was writing in her notebook. Her face remained as cold and proper as always. I had always admired that composure. 50 years old, a flawless reputation, a perfectly tailored suit, hair neatly pinned up. She was the embodiment of order and discipline. Then, the room suddenly tilted. I pressed my back hard against the chair so I wouldn't fall. My heart began to beat out of rhythm. My breathing turned shallow and fast as if my lungs no longer had enough air. Cold sweat broke out on my dark brown skin. Black rings spun before my eyes. "Nyla, can you hear me?" Sterling's voice felt like it was coming from very far away. I looked up, forcing a smile. Yes. "I'm sorry, it's just a bit hot. Could we open a window?" Then I shook my head myself. No need. I'll step out for a breath. I'll be right back." I stood up, trying to walk steadily. But my shaking legs betrayed me. I could feel all eyes turning toward me. Worried, curious, uneasy. Outside the meeting room, I closed the door and leaned my back against the hallway wall. The cold surface eased things for a few seconds, and then everything went dark again. I have to get outside, I thought. Air will help. I passed my desk. 2 monitors, a neatly stacked pile of files, the violet plant I watered right on schedule. I grabbed my phone, my bag, pulled on my cardigan, and headed toward the elevator. Ariel James, the young receptionist, called after me. "Ms. Nyla, are you okay?" "Should I get you some water?" "Thank you, Ariel, no need. I'm just stepping out for 5 minutes." The elevator doors opened. The mirrored wall reflected my face, pale, dotted with sweat. I barely recognized myself. Down in the lobby, I stepped outside. The April wind carried the scent of budding flowers, but it didn't help me breathe any easier. If anything, my body grew weaker. My legs could no longer hold me. Everything spun. I barely managed to drop onto a wooden bench in the small plaza beside the building. My heart hammered like it was about to burst. Each breath took effort. My ears rang. The world seemed to slide into a different reality. What is happening to me? When I opened my eyes, a figure was bending over me. A man in his 70s wearing a gray coat and a knit cap. Worried eyes. Strong hands reaching toward my wrist. "What are you doing?" I yanked my arm back. "That's a gift from my husband." He didn't step away. He just looked at me closely. "You're feeling sick because of that bracelet, aren't you?" I looked down at my wrist. The slim metal bracelet, a gift Quentin gave me 3 months ago, glinted. A chain of small magnets advertised as helping circulation and heart health. Expensive. A medical device, Quentin had called it. "I'm Dr. Franklin P. Avery," he said, pulling an old card from his wallet. "I used to be a cardiologist, 40 years. And I've seen more than a few people harmed by things like this. But my husband said it helps." My voice faltered. Dr. Avery sat down beside me. "You can barely breathe. You're pale. You're shaking." "This isn't fatigue. Take it off for 1 hour. Then you'll know." I hesitated. Quentin always made me wear it non-stop. Every morning he checked. "Promise me. I don't know. How long have you been wearing it? 3 months? And when did the first episode start?" 2 weeks after that, he nodded. Not a coincidence. "Do you have arrhythmia?" "I have mild tachycardia, and Quentin knows." "And he still gave you this?" My phone vibrated. "Quentin, have you taken it off yet?" "No." "Then you're just overworking yourself." When I hung up, Dr. Avery spoke softly. "Go get checked and take it off." I unclasped it. Removed the bracelet. In just 1 minute, my breathing was already easier. "Your health is the only thing that truly belongs to you," he said. "Don't let anyone manage it." In the car, I stared into nothing. The bracelet lay in my coat pocket. 3 months, a reflex. The magnetic field will help you. Don't take it off. Good girl. And now I understood. It wasn't care. It was control. I called Penn Medicine. An appointment at 4:30. I didn't go home. I drove to the Schuylkill River. Watching the water flow, I pieced everything together. 2 weeks after the bracelet, I started getting weak. Quentin stopped me from seeing a doctor. Quentin got furious when I took it off. "I love you," he texted, and for the first time I asked myself, if he loves me, why am I getting more and more afraid? If you've made it this far, believe me. What Nyla has discovered is only the surface. In the next part, she will go see a cardiologist, and the truth about the bracelet and about Quentin himself will be far darker than anything she imagined. Stay with me, because from this moment on, Nyla's life will never be the same again. I finished the last of the tea, now stone cold, and glanced at the clock. There were still 3 hours until the appointment. I opened my handbag, took out my notebook and pen, flipped to a blank page. Then I started writing, not to make it pretty, not to make it poetic. I wrote as if I were trying to save myself from a fog, everything I could remember, all the small things I used to ignore. January. Quentin gave me the bracelet, insisting I wear it constantly. Late January, the first dizzy spell. February, the episodes happened more often. Quentin persuaded me not to see a doctor. March, it got worse. Quentin exploded when I took the bracelet off. April, today, an elderly doctor said the bracelet was harmful. I reread each line. Every word felt like a stone being set down, making the picture heavier and heavier. Then I added one more line, a line that made my hand go ice cold as soon as I put the pen down. Quentin knew about my tachycardia. He was with me at the cardiologist. The picture became clearer and more frightening. My phone buzzed on the table, buzzing non-stop but silent because I had it on mute. Messages from Quentin piled in one after another, like knocking that refused to stop. I didn't open them. I needed to wait for the appointment. I needed the truth. And then I would decide what I had to do. I stood up, paid, and walked outside. The air was fresher. The sky was starting to clear. Thin sunlight slipped through breaks in the clouds and shone down on the river. I walked slowly along the Schuylkill River Trail, and the strange thing was, with every step, it became a little easier to breathe. No bracelet on my wrist. For the first time in 3 months, I felt free. Not the kind of freedom that means go wherever you want, but a small, fierce kind of freedom. The freedom to breathe with my own chest. At exactly 3:30, I was standing in the lobby of Penn Medicine, a modern glass and concrete building in the heart of Philadelphia. The air smelled of antiseptic mixed with fresh coffee from a small stand near the entrance. Behind the reception desk, the young woman who had scheduled my appointment by phone looked up. "Nyla Hart?" she confirmed. "Yes. Room 307, 3rd floor. Dr. Montgomery is waiting." I took the elevator up. When the doors opened, the hospital hallway was bright white and quiet. I found the right room and knocked. Inside, a woman in her 40s in a white coat sat behind a desk, short hair, sharp, focused eyes. My medical file lay on the desk. "Hello, Ms. Hart, come in. Have a seat." "What's been bothering you?" I sat in the chair across from her and began to tell her everything about the bracelet, about the shortness of breath and dizziness, about Dr. Franklin P. Avery, the elderly doctor I'd met outside, about how my husband insisted I wear the thing constantly and how he raged when I took it off. Dr. Montgomery listened closely. Now and then she asked a brief question to clarify something. Then she said, "Let me see the bracelet." I took it from my bag and set it on the desk. The doctor picked it up, turned it in her hands, held it up to the light. I saw her eyebrows tighten slightly. "The magnet is fairly strong for its weight. Do you have a history of tachycardia?" "Yes, I was diagnosed a year ago." Dr. Montgomery shook her head, calm but decisive. "Ms. Hart, with tachycardia, magnetic items can be dangerous. A magnetic field can affect the heart rhythm in unpredictable ways. For healthy people, it might be harmless, but with arrhythmias, it's contraindicated." She looked straight at me. "We're going to do an ECG right now. I want to check your condition immediately." I nodded, and a cold certainty slid down my spine. Quentin knew. He couldn't not know. The ECG machine hummed, then spit out a long strip of paper, jagged lines running like the breath of something trying to speak the truth. I lay on the exam bed, eyes fixed on the white ceiling. Cold sensors pressed against my chest made me feel anchored in place. I tried to breathe evenly, but the more I tried, the more clearly I heard my own heart. Dr. Montgomery leaned over the machine, studying the readings. Her face gradually grew serious, not panicked, but the seriousness of someone who has seen too much and understands immediately what's happening. "You can get dressed again," she said at last. I sat up, peeled off the sensors, pulled my blouse back down. My hands trembled slightly, not from weakness, but from the tension swelling in my chest. I was afraid, and at the same time desperate to hear the truth. Dr. Montgomery returned to the desk and placed the ECG printout in front of her. She was silent for a few seconds, seconds that stretched like a paused film. Then she looked up. "Ms. Hart, right now your heart rate is within normal limits. Mild sinus tachycardia is still present, but it's controlled." She met my eyes. "Let me ask, how long has it been since you wore the bracelet?" "Since this morning. About 5 hours, maybe 6. "And how do you feel?" I didn't answer immediately. I listened to my body. The dizziness had disappeared since I sat by the river. The chest pressure was gone. I was still tired, but it was normal tiredness, not the feeling of having life drained out of me. "I feel better," I said softly. "Much better." The doctor nodded as if she had known from the start. "I thought so." "You see, Magnetic bracelets are not real medical devices. Their effectiveness isn't proven, and under certain conditions, they can cause harm. You have tachycardia. A magnetic field can trigger arrhythmias, cause dizziness, shortness of breath, weakness, exactly what you described. So this bracelet is contraindicated for me? My voice went smaller. Completely, Dr. Montgomery said firmly. Moreover, I advise you never to wear anything like that again. She pulled out a sheet of paper. I'm going to refer you for additional tests, a 24-hour Holter monitor and an echocardiogram. We need to check whether wearing it for so long has caused any serious damage. The word serious damage landed in my ears like something heavy. For 3 months, I had been wearing something that was slowly destroying me, and Quentin knew. I frowned, trying to keep my voice steady. Doctor, who would recommend a bracelet like this? My husband said he bought it from a specialist. Dr. Montgomery thought for a moment, then spoke slowly. A specialist in quotation marks. The internet is full of things like this. They're sold as medical devices. Most of the time, it's a scam. Either your husband didn't research properly and got duped, or... She stopped. But I understood, or he knew exactly what he was doing. I took a deep breath. Thank you, doctor. I'll do all the tests. Good, she said. Here's the referral. Tomorrow morning we can fit the Holter monitor. You'll wear it for 24 hours. The day after, the echocardiogram. And this is your report. She handed me a stamped sheet of paper. I took it and read line by line. Patient Hart N. 31 years old. Diagnosis, sinus tachycardia. Wearing magnetic items is completely contraindicated due to the risk of worsening arrhythmia. Additional testing required. I folded the paper and carefully placed it in my bag. A document, an official confirmation. Proof. Ms. Hart, Dr. Montgomery called before I fully stood up. I'm sorry for the personal question, but exactly who insisted you wear the bracelet? I felt my throat tighten. My husband, I said, almost without a voice. He knows about your diagnosis? Yes. He was with me at the appointment a year ago. Dr. Montgomery was quiet for a few seconds. Then she spoke softly, in the voice of a doctor doing her duty. You understand then. I don't have the right to interfere in your personal life, but I have an obligation to warn you. If someone intentionally gave you something that could harm you while clearly knowing it was contraindicated, that is very serious. Perhaps you should consult not only a cardiologist, but also a psychologist or a lawyer. I nodded, unable to find any words. I thanked her and left the room. The hallway was quiet. I sat down on a long bench, took out my phone, and turned the sound back on. The screen looked like it exploded. 17 missed calls from Quentin, 23 messages. I opened the conversation and began to read. Where are you? Why aren't you answering? Nyla, I'm worried. Call me immediately. This isn't a joke. I'm your husband. I have the right to know where you are. If you're at the doctor, at least text. I'm going crazy. You're ignoring me after everything I do for you? Fine. Stay silent, but I'll remember this. The last message had been sent 10 minutes ago. I exhaled and typed one short line. I was at the cardiologist. I'm driving home. We need to talk. The reply came instantly. Finally. I've been waiting. I put the phone back into my bag. I walked out of Penn Medicine, out of the antiseptic smell and white lights, and into the real air of the city. I knew the conversation I feared most was about to happen. But I also knew I couldn't delay anymore. Too many questions. And for the first time, I had the right to demand answers. Right then, before I stepped down the last stair of the building, a thought flashed through me that turned my heart cold. If Quentin truly didn't know, then why was he panicking enough to call 17 times? And if he truly loved me, why weren't his messages, "Are you okay? But I have the right to know where you are?" Just one sentence, but it made me understand. Tonight, The confrontation wouldn't be only about the bracelet. It would be about what he was trying to hold on to tightly, control over me. On the drive home, I couldn't stop thinking about all the times when I should have realized something was wrong. How many signs had I ignored? How many times had I excused Quentin, telling myself it was just worry, just love? I thought back to the 3rd month after we got married. I planned to meet my best friend Jessica at a cafe. We hadn't seen each other in a month, and I missed her. But when I told Quentin, his face darkened. Again? You just saw her 2 weeks ago. That was a month ago, Quentin. Are you sure? I remember you going out recently. He made me doubt my own memory. I had heard of this, and last week when I read an article about domestic abuse, I learned the exact name for it, gaslighting. I went to meet Jessica anyway, but Quentin called 5 times in 2 hours. Each call had a different excuse. I'm just checking that you're okay. Remember to buy milk on the way home. When are you coming back? I'm cooking dinner. Are you still there? It's late. Jessica noticed. She looked at me, her voice full of suspicion. Nyla, what is wrong with him? Doesn't he trust you? And I did what I always did. I defended him. No, he's just worried. He loves me. But Jessica's face said everything. She didn't believe it. And I gradually stopped seeing my friends. Not because Quentin directly forbade it. He never once said, you can't go. He was subtler than that. He made me feel guilty. You're leaving me alone again? I planned a romantic night. Fine. Go. I'll just stay home alone. Then there was work. At first, Quentin was proud of my career, but then he started complaining. You work too much. You don't have time for me anymore. Is that job more important than family? Sterling is exploiting you. You should find another job. I tried to explain that I loved my work, that it made me feel valuable. But Quentin always twisted everything back toward himself. So, I don't give you meaning? Then finances. Quentin insisted he would manage the money. At first I agreed because I thought it was more convenient. He said he was good with numbers, but then I realized I didn't know how much money we had in our joint account. When I asked, Quentin got irritated immediately. You don't trust me? I just want to know. Why? Are you planning to buy something without telling me? Eventually I stopped asking. Then there was my phone. Quentin wanted my password. We're married. There shouldn't be secrets. But I don't have anything to hide. Then why won't you give me the password? I gave it to him. And sometimes I caught him reading my messages. I just want to make sure nobody bothers you. Then my family. Quentin didn't like me calling my mother too often. Your mother is always interfering in our lives. She thinks she knows better. She's making you doubt me. She never liked me. That wasn't true. My mother had tried to like Quentin, but a few months ago she asked me very softly, Are you happy, Nyla? Yes, Mom. Are you sure? You look tired. Are you eating enough? You're worrying too much. I'm fine. But deep down, I knew my mother was right. I wasn't fine. I just wasn't ready to admit it. And now, driving through the streets of Philadelphia, I watched the pieces arrange themselves into a complete picture. Isolation. Quentin had cut me off from friends, family, and even my work in his own way. Financial control. I had no access to my own money. Surveillance. He checked my phone, wanted to know where I was at all times. Gaslighting. He made me doubt my memory, my feelings, even my perception of reality. And now, the bracelet. The tool that made me weaker, more afraid, more dependent. All of it was abuse. Psychological abuse. The kind that doesn't leave bruises, but destroys you from the inside. I parked in front of our building. I sat still for a moment, my hands still on the steering wheel. I needed strength for what was coming. I knew Quentin wouldn't let go. He would manipulate, justify, blame. But this time, I had proof, the medical report. I had Dr. Franklin P. Avery's words. I had Dr. Montgomery's warning. And most importantly, I had the truth. I went home, up to the 5th floor, and unlocked the door with my own key. The apartment smelled of sautéed onions and garlic. Quentin was cooking dinner, just as he had promised. I took off my shoes and stepped into the living room. In the kitchen, he stood at the stove, stirring food in a pan. When he heard my footsteps, he turned around. Finally, he smiled, but the smile was tight as a drawn string. "I thought you weren't coming back." "Why wouldn't I come back?" I asked, still standing at the kitchen threshold. Quentin shrugged as if it were nothing, but there was a layer of bitterness in his voice. "You've been acting strange since this morning, not answering calls, ignoring messages, like I'm a stranger." "Quentin, we need to talk seriously." He turned off the stove and faced me fully. "I'm listening." I pulled the medical report from my bag and handed it to him. "Read it." Quentin took the paper. His eyes scanned quickly, and I watched each layer of emotion change color across his face. Surprise, then irritation, then anger. "What kind of bullshit is this?" He threw the paper onto the table. "Some doctor just declares the bracelet is harmful. Based on what?" "Based on the fact that I have tachycardia and magnetic items are contraindicated," I answered, trying to keep my voice steady. "You know that. You were with me at the cardiologist a year ago. You heard the diagnosis." Quentin slammed his hand on the table. "I'm not letting you," he growled, then changed direction instantly. "You're accusing me of wanting to hurt you? I'm your husband. I take care of you." "Taking care of me isn't forcing me to wear something that's making me worse." "It's not making you worse," Quentin snarled. "Doctors don't understand. I read the research. Magnetic therapy stabilizes heart rhythm. It's contraindicated." I heard myself speaking faster, anger rising. "Why did you insist? Why did you get furious when I took it off? Why did you convince me not to see a doctor?" Quentin stepped toward me, his face twisted with strain. "Because you don't know how to take care of yourself," he said like a verdict. "Without me, you wouldn't make it. You work yourself to exhaustion. You forget to eat. You destroy yourself. I control you because you aren't capable of controlling yourself." The word control hit my ears like a slap. "You want to control me?" I asked, my voice turning cold. "Yes," Quentin yelled, "and there's nothing wrong with that. I'm your husband." "I know what you need better than you do. You don't know." I raised my voice too. "You're not a doctor. You just want me weak and dependent." Quentin went silent. His breathing was heavy, his hands clenched into fists. Then suddenly he changed his tone, softened in a way that was frightening, almost affectionate. "Nyla, you're tired. You're stressed. Eat. Rest a little. Everything will be fine. I don't want to argue." "I'm not tired." I shook my head. "I just finally understand. You don't care. You control. The bracelet is just a tool. You want me uncomfortable, so I'll be scared. So I'll need you." "Paranoid?" Quentin turned away. "You're overthinking. The doctor put a bunch of nonsense in your head." I took the bracelet out and placed it on the table. "I'm not wearing this anymore. I'm not following your orders. My health is mine." Quentin turned back, snatched the bracelet, and clenched it in his fist. "You'll regret this," he said, his voice icy. "Without me, you'll be lost. Who will take care of you when you feel sick again? Who will look after you?" "I will take care of myself." My voice shook, but I didn't move. "And if I need to, I'll see a doctor, a real doctor, not a husband who gives me something dangerous." Quentin stepped in close, looking down at me. "You think you have the right to manage your own health? You can't even remember to wear the bracelet." "I do," I said. "I have the right. I'm your husband." "For now," I replied, each word clear. "For now, you're my husband." The air thickened. Quentin stared at me, and in his eyes I saw something new. Not anger, not annoyance, but fear. Fear of losing control. "What are you trying to say?" he asked slowly. "I need time," I said. "I need to be alone." "You think you're going where?" Quentin's voice sharpened. to a friend's place for a few days. I need to sort out my feelings. I turned toward the bedroom. Quentin followed right behind me. You're not going anywhere. We settle this right now. I pulled a gym bag from the closet and started stuffing things in. A few sets of underwear, jeans, a sweater, toiletries. My hands trembled, but I forced myself to keep going. Quentin stood blocking the doorway. Nyla, stop. You're not going anywhere. Move. I looked at a house. No. Quentin, I said, move. He didn't budge. A needle of fear pierced my chest, but I stepped forward. Quentin grabbed my hand. You're staying. We're going to talk like normal. Let go of me, I said quietly, but firmly. No. I yanked my arm free, shoved him in the chest, and ran out of the room. I grabbed the big bag, the handbag with documents, my car keys, and rushed straight to the door. Quentin caught up at the entryway, but I had already opened the door and bolted into the stairwell. Nyla! Come back right now! His shout echoed through the stairwell. I didn't look back. I ran down, my heart pounding like a war drum. When I reached the bottom, I almost threw myself into my car. Quentin appeared at the building entrance as I started the engine. I turned out of the driveway, merged into traffic. Only when I reached the boulevard did I allow myself to breathe out. My hands were shaking. I pulled over, switched on the hazard lights, and sat still for a few minutes to calm down. My phone buzzed. A message from Quentin. You'll regret this. Without me, you're nothing. I looked at it exactly once. Then I blocked his number. I shoved the phone into my bag and drove to the only person I could trust right now, Vanessa Maddox. I got home a little before 6 in the evening. The Philadelphia sky had turned a pale violet, and the streetlights clicked on one by one like exclamation points in my chest. I parked in the underground garage, turned off the engine, but I didn't get out right away. In my handbag, the medical report was neatly folded, black and white proofs. An official confirmation that the bracelet was harming me. I touched it through the fabric as if touching a shield. I can do this, I told myself. This is my health, my life. I took a deep breath, grabbed my bag, and stepped into the elevator. When I reached the 5th floor, the familiar hallway appeared. Beige carpet, a few abstract paintings hung slightly crooked, and apartment 512, the place I used to call home. I unlocked the door. The faint scent of sautéed onions and garlic lingered in the air. Quentin was in the kitchen, stirring something in a pan. When he heard me, he turned around. Finally, he smiled, but the smile was tight, forced. I thought you weren't coming back. Why would you think that? I stood at the kitchen threshold, not stepping any closer. Quentin shrugged. You've been strange all day, not picking up, not answering messages, like I'm a stranger. I kept my voice calm. Quentin, we need to talk seriously. He turned off the stove and faced me. I'm listening. I pulled out the medical report and held it out to him. Read it. Quentin skimmed a few lines, and his face changed. Surprise, irritation, and then, quickly, anger. He tossed the paper onto the table. What is this nonsense? Some doctor says the bracelet is harmful. Based on what? Based on my tachycardia diagnosis, I said clearly, and magnetic items are contraindicated. You know that. You came with me to the cardiologist a year ago. Quentin slammed his hand on the table. Are you accusing me of trying to hurt you? I'm your husband. I take care of you. Taking care of me isn't forcing me to wear something that's making me weaker. I shot back, heat surging up. Why did you insist? Why did you get angry when I took it off? Why did you stop me from seeing a doctor? Quentin stepped closer, his voice sharp as a blade. Because you don't know how to look after yourself. Without me, you can't handle it. You overwork, you forget to eat, you forget to sleep. I have to control you because you can't do it yourself. I froze for half a beat. Control? Quentin ground the words out. Yes, and there's nothing wrong with it. I'm your husband. I know what you need better than you do. He stopped mid-sentence, biting his lip as if he had nearly let something cruel slip out. What am I to you, I asked, my voice shaking but my eyes locked on his. Go on, Quentin, what am I to you? Quentin said nothing. His chest rose and fell hard, his hands clenched. Then he changed his tone, softened in a way that was frightening, almost tender. Nyla, you're tired, you're stressed. Eat, let's rest and everything will be fine. I don't want to argue. I'm not tired, I shook my head. I just realized something. I pulled out the bracelet and set it on the table. I'm not wearing it anymore. I'm not obeying your orders. My health is my responsibility. Quentin snatched up the bracelet and squeezed it tight. You'll regret this. Without me, you'll die. Who's going to take care of you when you're sick? I'll take care of myself, I said. My voice still trembled, but I didn't back away. And if I need to, I'll find a doctor. A real doctor. Not a husband who shoves something dangerous at me and calls it love. Quentin leaned toward me, his voice thick with manufactured resentment. You're ungrateful. I married you. I provide. I take care of you. What? And you treat me like this? I stepped back. Love isn't manipulation. Care isn't control. You don't have the right to manage my health. I do, Quentin roared. I'm your husband. For now, I said softly, like a cut. A heavy silence pressed down over the kitchen. Quentin stared at me. For the first time, there was more in his eyes than anger. It was fear. Fear of losing control. What are you saying? He asked slowly. I need time, I said. I need to be alone. Where do you think you're going? His voice turned bitter. To a friend's house, a few days. I need to sort out my feelings. I turned toward the bedroom. Quentin followed close behind. You're not going anywhere. We settle this right now. I pulled out a gym bag and hurriedly stuffed in a few essentials. My hands were shaking, but I forced myself to move fast. Quentin stood blocking the doorway. Nyla, stop. You're not going anywhere. Move! I looked straight at him. No. He grabbed my arm. You're staying. We're going to talk like normal. Let go of me. No. I jerked free, shoved him back, grabbed my bag with documents and my car keys, and lunged for the door. Quentin chased after me, but I had already opened it and burst into the stairwell. Nyla! Come back right now! His voice echoed behind me. I didn't turn my head. I ran down as if I slowed for even 1 second, I would be dragged back into the cage I had once called marriage. Only when I reached the boulevard did I dare to breathe out. I pulled over, turned on the hazard lights. My heart was still pounding wildly. My hands were still shaking. My phone buzzed. A message from Quentin. You'll regret this. Without me, you're nothing. I looked at it exactly once. Then I blocked his number, and I drove to the only person I trusted right now, Vanessa Maddox. On the way to Vanessa's house, a freezing thought suddenly ran down my spine. If Dr. Avery hadn't appeared today, if I hadn't taken the bracelet off, how much longer would I have endured those choking episodes? A week? A month? Or until I couldn't stand up anymore? And the most frightening thing wasn't the bracelet, it was the truth. Quentin had gotten used to watching me grow weaker, and he liked it. Vanessa's house was about 20 minutes away, in a quiet neighborhood of low-row houses. I called her while I was still on the road. Vanessa, I'm sorry to bother you tonight. Can I come over? I need help. Come. Her voice was firm. I'm home. When I parked, Vanessa was already waiting on the porch. Seeing my red eyes and my shaking hands, she didn't ask a single extra question. She just held me tight and brought me inside. Tell me, she said as she poured tea. And I told her. Everything. The bracelet. The episodes. The medical report. The confrontation. Even the moment he grabbed my arm. Vanessa listened for a long time, silent, only nodding now and then. When I finished, she set her tea down, her voice gentle but final. You did the right thing leaving. This is domestic violence, Nyla. Psychological abuse. He controls you, manipulates you, and damages your health. You need legal support." I burst into tears. But this time, the tears weren't panic. They felt like my body was finally allowing itself to loosen. "Tomorrow, I'll handle your leave for you," Vanessa continued. "For now, stay here. I have a guest room." "Thank you," I whispered. "I don't know if it weren't for you." Vanessa smiled faintly. "Don't blame yourself. You're not at fault." That night, I lay in the small guest room, a soft scent of lavender around me. Exhaustion washed over me. Not physical exhaustion, but the exhaustion of forcing myself to believe something wrong for far too long. But along with the exhaustion came relief. I had left. I had chosen myself. The next morning, sunlight slipped through the curtains and woke me. It took me a second to remember where I was. Vanessa Maddox's house. I picked up my phone, 8 a.m. Friday. There were 27 missed calls from an unknown number and several messages. Quentin. I had blocked his main number, so he had switched to another. I skimmed. "Come home." "Let's talk calmly. We have obligations to each other. Everything you have is because of me." I deleted them. Blocked the number, too. A light knock sounded at the door. "Nyla, are you up? Breakfast is ready." In the kitchen, Vanessa was flipping pancakes. The table had honey and berries, a kind normalcy that nearly made me choke. "How did you sleep?" she asked. "Better than the past few weeks." "Eat," Vanessa said. "I'll call Sterling to arrange leave for you." 10 minutes later, she returned. "Done. Sterling gave you 2 weeks off. He said your health matters more." I let out a breath. "Thank you." Vanessa handed me a name and a phone number. Family lawyer. Attorney Keisha Holloway. "Very good. Save it." I saved the number. The word abuse still felt strange because I had always thought violence meant hitting, shouting, but Quentin didn't do that. He did something more subtle. He turned control into care. After breakfast, I called attorney Keisha Holloway. Her voice was calm and confident. We scheduled a meeting for the next day. The rest of the morning, I organized documents, our marriage certificate, bank statements, medical records, and I wrote a list of what I needed to say. Each line I added was a door closing. At noon, Vanessa asked me to take a walk with her in a nearby park. The spring air was light and sweet. I took a deep breath and realized I had forgotten what it felt like to breathe freely. "You know," Vanessa said, "I went through something similar too, 20 years ago." I stared at her. "You? Really?" Vanessa nodded. My ex-husband cared like that too, calling 10 times a day, checking who I talked to, where I went, what I ate, always saying, "I'm worried, I love you, without me, you won't be okay." I believed it for 3 years, until I realized I was suffocating. "And you left?" "Yes." I took a bag to my sister's place. He begged, promised to change, but people like that don't change. They just learn how to hide their control better. "Do you regret it?" "Not for a second," Vanessa said. "Only regret not leaving sooner." That evening, we went back to the house. I was tired but steady. Tomorrow, I would meet the lawyer, and for the first time in a long time, I knew I was heading in the right direction. The next morning, I went to the office of attorney Keisha Holloway, a small space on the 3rd floor of an old office building, not flashy, but clean, orderly, and with a feeling of safety. Keisha shook my hand, invited me to sit, and then listened quietly. I told her everything, from the bracelet, the choking episodes, the medical report, to the way Quentin had been controlling me little by little, and the confrontation that forced me to run from my home like someone dodging a debt. Keisha took notes nonstop. Every so often, she looked up and asked exactly one very expensive question. "How long did he make you wear the bracelet? Has he ever held your money or controlled your phone? Any specific threats yet?" When I stopped, Keisha set her pen down and looked straight into my eyes. "Nyla, what you've just described is a textbook case of psychological abuse in a marriage. He controls you, manipulates you, and there are also signs of sabotaging your health. You have the medical report. That is a very important document. I swallowed hard. So, what should I do next? Keisha spoke clearly, step by step, like drawing a road in front of me. First, safety. You're staying at a friend's place, right? Yes, I'm staying at Vanessa Maddox's. Good. Do not go home alone under any circumstances. If you need to get belongings, you must have someone with you or request police assistance. Second, file for divorce. You have the right to end the marriage on grounds of irreconcilable differences. Given this context, we can request a faster process. Third, document every contact. Calls, texts, unknown numbers, any threats. All of it can be used to request a protective order if he escalates. I nodded, writing as if I were a student taking notes. For the first time in days, I felt my mind becoming organized. Can the divorce be fast if he doesn't agree? I asked. It may take a few months, Keisha said. The court usually allows time for reconciliation, but if he threatens you or stalks you, we'll take a different route. The most important thing is, you have to be firm. I sat up straighter. I've decided. I'm not going back. Keisha smiled very faintly. Then we begin. We reviewed assets. I had no children with Quentin. The apartment belonged to Quentin before the marriage, but financial matters during cohabitation still needed clarification. The car was mine before we married. That part was simpler. Before I left the office, Keisha reminded me one last time, don't meet him alone, and don't get pulled into emotional conversations. He'll use that to control you. I walked out to the parking lot feeling lighter, not because everything was finished, but because I finally had a plan, a path. Right then, my phone rang, an unknown number. I hesitated for a few seconds, then answered. Hello? Nyla. It's me. Quentin's voice sounded tired, almost pitiful. Don't hang up. I just want to talk. I tightened my grip on the phone. We have nothing to talk about. We do, I'm sorry. I realize I controlled you too much, but I did it because I was afraid of losing you. I love you, Nyla. Please meet me. Let's talk calmly. I stared into the empty space in front of me and said a sentence I didn't even know I was capable of saying. Quentin, I'm filing for divorce. The line went silent. The silence stretched long enough that I could hear my own heartbeat clearly. Then his voice changed completely. Cold, sharp, and possessive. Are you serious? Completely. You'll regret it. Quentin gave a mocking laugh. I won't let you divorce me. You're my wife, and you'll stay my wife. The law is on my side, I said, forcing myself to stay calm. I have the medical report. I have evidence. The medical report? He laughed viciously. A piece of paper from some doctor? I can find 10 people who'll say the opposite. Do whatever you want, I said, my voice growing steadier. I'm not afraid of you anymore. Not afraid? His voice dropped, like a warning. You forgot who I am. I can make you lose your job. I can ruin your reputation. I hung up. My hands were shaking. But this time, it wasn't shaking from weakness. I was shaking from rage. Because I finally saw it clearly. Quentin's apology was just another mask, another door to pull me back in. I drove back to Vanessa's house. That night, I told her about the call. Vanessa frowned. He threatened you, she said immediately. Write down every sentence while you still remember. If he calls again, turn on recording. And if he keeps going, we can report it. I nodded. I was being backed into a corner. But strangely, I felt stronger. Because I knew what he was doing. And this time, I wasn't blind anymore. That night, lying in bed at Vanessa's house, I suddenly realized something that made my spine go ice cold. Quentin wasn't just afraid I would leave. He was afraid I had evidence. Because the moment I mentioned the medical report, his voice changed instantly. No more begging. No more I love you. Only the true nature of a man who had gotten used to winning by making me weaker. And I understood. If he dared to threaten me like that when I had already left the house, then when the court papers reached him, this would get worse. The next day, I went to the clinic to be fitted with a 24-hour Holter monitor, a small device taped to my chest, recording every heartbeat like a diary that couldn't lie. A day later, I returned to have it removed. A few hours after that, Dr. Tasha Montgomery invited me into her office. She placed the printout on the desk. "Ms. Hart, the results show you've had episodes of arrhythmia, tachycardia, and a few premature beats. But overall, your heart is still okay. The important thing is that you took the bracelet off in time. If you had worn it another 1 to 2 months, the consequences could have been more serious." I let out a long breath, as if the ownership of my body had been returned to me. "So, everything will be okay?" "It will be, if you avoid stress and absolutely do not use magnetic items like that again." Dr. Montgomery handed me an updated report. "You can provide this to your lawyer." That evening, I met Keisha and gave her the new file. Keisha read carefully, then nodded. "Good. Now, we don't just have contraindicated, we have actual harm. This strengthens your position." She set a stack of papers in front of me. "The petition is ready." "Sign here and here." I took the pen. My hand didn't shake the way I expected. I signed my name in one steady stroke, like sealing a door shut forever. The next morning, Keisha called. "It's been filed. A hearing date will be set within the next month. Quentin will be served." I sat still for a moment before breathing out. "Thank you." The days that followed passed in a strange kind of peace. Quentin didn't call anymore. I stayed at Vanessa's, took walks, read, helped her around the house. Sterling Maddox stopped by sometimes, bringing fruit, checking on me. He didn't pry, didn't get curious. He simply showed me I wasn't alone. I began to understand what real care was. No control, no demands, no making you suffocate. Then one afternoon, as I sat on the porch with a cup of tea, my phone buzzed. An unknown number. A message appeared. "You think you can hide from me? I know where you are. It's only a matter of time." My blood went cold for a beat. I took a screenshot and sent it to Keisha immediately. She replied almost instantly, "Document it. If he continues, we'll request a restraining order." I blocked the number, took a deep breath, reminded myself this was Quentin's game, planting fear to pull me back. That evening, Vanessa and I walked along the Schuylkill River Trail. The sunset stained the sky pink and orange, the water glittering like shards of glass. I said softly, "It feels strange. My life is falling apart, but I feel lighter." Vanessa smiled. "Because you're breathing again, and you'll keep breathing." I swallowed hard. "But I'm scared. Scared of court. Scared to face him." "Being scared is normal," Vanessa said, her voice firm. "But you were strong enough to leave. You're strong enough to keep going, and you're not alone." That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling. The hearing still hung ahead like a cloud, vague, heavy. I didn't know what it would be like. But I knew one thing. I would not back down. Tomorrow would be another step toward freedom, and I was ready. 3 days after Keisha filed the petition, I began to understand a very unpleasant truth. Quentin wasn't silent because he had let go. He was silent because he was calculating. The days at Vanessa Maddox's house seemed peaceful. I cleared my head, ate properly, walked along the Schuylkill River Trail as a new habit to remind myself that I still had the right to breathe. But that peace was like a smooth surface of water, calm to the eye while something moved underneath. On the 4th morning, as I stepped outside to get into my car, I saw a black vehicle parked about half a block away. Dark tinted windows, no strange plate, no obvious sign. I told myself I was imagining things, but when I rounded the corner, the car turned too. My heart slipped a beat. I didn't speed up. I didn't panic. I remembered Keisha's words. The most dangerous thing is reacting on instinct. You have to observe like someone collecting evidence. I drove 2 more blocks and turned into a small parking lot beside a convenience store. I switched off the engine and sat still, pretending to check my phone. 5 minutes. 10 minutes. The black car parked at the farthest corner. I quickly snapped a photo through my window, my hands icy cold. Right then, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I didn't answer. I sent the photo to Keisha and texted one line. I think he's following me. Keisha called back immediately. Nyla, listen to me. Don't go home alone. Don't drive straight to work. Go to a crowded place or the nearest police station. And from now on, document everything. I swallowed hard. I'm scared. Being scared is right. But you're doing the right thing. Being scared and still acting correctly, that's courage. I drove straight to a busy cafe near downtown. I sat close to the window, ordered a hot tea I couldn't drink. I looked out and saw the black car pass by, slowly, as if just to let me know, I'm here. That wasn't love. That was a reminder of ownership. At noon that day, Sterling Maddox called me. Nyla, are you okay? His voice was low and serious, no longer the polite small talk kind. I'm okay. Why do you ask? Sterling let out a breath. This morning, Quentin came to the company. I felt blood rush into my ears. What did he do? He demanded to see me. He said you're unstable, that you're being influenced, that you're making up stories about the bracelet. He also said he suspects you of embezzling documents. I laughed, but it sounded dry, like tearing paper. He's trying to destroy me. Sterling paused, then said very slowly, Security escorted him out. And I want you to hear this clearly, Nyla. I believe you. I couldn't hold back my tears. I'd been doubted for so long that hearing someone say, I believe you, made me dizzy. Thank you, I said, my voice cracking. I'll handle it. Sterling replied, You won't handle it alone. Vanessa told me. Keisha will also send him a warning letter not to harass the workplace. If he steps into the company again, I will call the police. I nodded, though he couldn't see it. When I hung up, I realized both my hands were shaking, but this time, I wasn't the panicked woman on the bench outside the building anymore. I had allies, and Quentin hated that. That evening, I returned to Vanessa's house by a winding route, exactly as Keisha instructed. I parked close to the door and rushed inside. Vanessa was in the kitchen. When she heard the key, she turned immediately. Look at your face, she said at once. What did he do now? I told her about the black car, about Sterling, about Quentin starting to smear me. Vanessa set her tea down on the table, her eyes sharpening. This is the stage where he feels he's losing control. People like that have a pattern. If they can't pull you back with pleading, they'll pull you back with fear. I clenched my fingers. What else do I need to do? Vanessa didn't answer right away. She opened a drawer, took out a small notebook, and slid it toward me. Write down everything. Time, place, license plate if you remember. Calls. Messages. All of it. Every detail is a brick. I bent down to write, my handwriting crooked because my hands were shaking. When I finished, Vanessa said something that made me go cold. Nyla, are you sure that bracelet was really just magnetic? I looked up. What do you mean? Vanessa stared straight at me. Some things look like jewelry, but inside there's something else. I don't want to scare you, but I also don't want you to be careless. Keisha needs to know this. A chill ran down my spine. I imagined my wrist wearing that thing for 3 months. I imagined the choking spells, the times my chest felt pressed down as if by a stone. I swallowed hard. I'll tell Keisha. That night, Keisha asked me to come to her office. When she heard about the stalking and Quentin showing up at the company, she didn't look surprised. She simply nodded, as if she'd expected it. We'll do 2 things, Keisha said. 1. Request a temporary protective order if there's enough basis. 2. Strengthen the file on the bracelet. We already have the medical report. The medical report proves harm, but I want to prove the source, Keisha said, her eyes sharp as a blade. Quentin says he bought it from a specialist. So, Which specialist? What store? Where's the receipt? What payment account? I opened my mouth, then stopped. I've never seen a receipt. Keisha curled her lip. Exactly. Because he didn't want you to. She pulled out a folder and set it in front of me. You remember Dr. Franklin P. Avery, right? I nodded. The elderly man on the bench, the man who helped me take off the bracelet. I asked Vanessa to try to reconnect based on your description, Keisha said, and we found someone who matches. He agreed to write a statement about seeing you struggling to breathe and the fact that you improved noticeably after taking the bracelet off. My throat tightened. He really agreed? He said one sentence. Keisha looked at me, her voice slowing. If she were my daughter, I'd do the same. I lowered my head, my shoulders shaking. I hated crying in front of other people, but I hated even more the fact that I had once believed I had to endure everything alone. Keisha pushed a box of tissues toward me. Listen, Nyla, a controlling person lives on two things, darkness and shame. You're dragging everything into the light, and that's why he's panicking. Before I left, Keisha called me back. Nyla, she said, I want you to prepare yourself for another hit. What kind of hit? Keisha looked straight at me. Quentin may not just smear you. He may show up in person. I need you to promise. If he appears in front of you, you do not engage. You do only one thing, record and leave. I nodded, my throat dry, and at that exact moment, my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. Just one sentence. I want to talk. Don't make me do it the hard way. I stared at the screen and felt my hands go numb. Keisha glanced once, then said coldly, There, it's starting. 2 days later, what Keisha said happened exactly like a script. I was at a supermarket near Vanessa's house, buying a few small things. I picked fruit, trying to keep my head normal like an ordinary woman, but when I turned around, I saw Quentin at the end of the aisle. No more pitiful voice on the phone. He was dressed neatly, his expression calm in a terrifying way. The calm of someone who believes he has a right. Nyla, he called, just loud enough for me to hear, just quiet enough that no one else noticed. Let's talk. I stepped back half a step. I wanted to scream, but I remembered Keisha's instructions. I took out my phone and started recording video without a word. Quentin saw the movement, and his eyes darkened. What are you doing? I didn't answer. I simply turned and walked fast toward the checkout area where there were employees and lots of people. Quentin followed, his voice dropping lower, grinding each word out. You think doing that means you win? You think you can turn me into the villain in your story? I stopped and turned to face him, not to argue, just to say one single sentence, clearly, enough for the camera, enough for myself. You are harassing me. If you take one more step, I will call the police. Quentin stood still. 1 beat, 2 beats. Then he smiled lightly, the kind of smile that makes your spine go cold. You learn fast. He turned away, but before he disappeared from the aisle, he tossed one last line over his shoulder like a hook. Oh, that bracelet. Are you sure you know what it is? I stood frozen. That wasn't an ordinary threat. It sounded like he was boasting that he had hidden something bigger. That night, I told Keisha. She was silent for a long time. Tomorrow, Keisha Mati, Keisha said, I'm filing for a temporary protective order. And I'm going to ask the court to consider the stalking and threats. I sat there stunned. The hearing, what will it be like? Keisha looked at me, her voice firm as a nail being driven in. There will be a courtroom. There will be white lights. There will be Quentin trying to perform. But you have to remember, the court doesn't judge who speaks better. The court judges who has evidence. And you do. I nodded. My heart was still racing, but it wasn't the foggy rhythm of fear anymore. It was the rhythm of someone standing upright. That night, I lay in bed at Vanessa's house, staring at the ceiling, thinking about the moment in the supermarket. Just one sentence from Quentin, and I understood. He still believed he could control me by planting doubt. But this time, I wasn't being pulled into his storm anymore. I closed my eyes and whispered to myself like an oath, on the day I go to court, I won't shake. And somewhere deep down, I knew it wouldn't be just a divorce hearing. It would be the day I stood in front of Quentin, in front of everyone, and forced him to face the truth he tried to hide. The first months after the divorce were nothing like the relief I had imagined. I thought that once I left Quentin, everything would instantly brighten, like flipping on a light in a dark room, that I'd exhale, feel happy, and watch my life suddenly turn vivid again. But reality doesn't work that way. There were nights I jolted awake at 3 a.m, my heart pounding like I'd been running for my life. I would lie perfectly still, listening to every tiny clank in the apartment, the pipes, the wind at the window, and then I'd imagine it was footsteps. My hands would shake, my throat would go dry, and it would take me hours to fall asleep again. And the scariest part was, I could still hear Quentin's voice in my head as clearly as if he were standing beside the bed. Without me, you're nothing. There were moments when I doubted myself again. I'd ask, did I overreact? Was he truly just worried? Did I destroy something that could still have been saved? But then I would open my folder. I would reread the medical report. I would look at the threatening messages. I would remember the feeling of suffocating inside that apartment, where every breath required permission, where love was measured by how obedient I was. And I knew I had done the right thing. Vanessa Maddox was the first person to pull me out of that fog. She didn't just give me a place to sleep. She gave me an anchor. One evening, Vanessa said, "Try a support group once, Nyla." I shook my head immediately. I didn't want to sit in a circle with strangers and tell them things that made me feel ashamed. I was afraid they'd look at me like a woman who was weak, easily led. But Vanessa just looked at me calmly. "You don't have to say anything. Just go and sit." So I went. The first meeting was on a Tuesday night in a small community center in Philadelphia. The room wasn't big. Soft yellow light, chairs arranged in a circle. About 12 women were there. Different ages, different skin tones, different styles. But their eyes shared one thing: exhaustion and effort. The facilitator was named Rachel, around 50, with a gentle, warm voice. She opened with a simple question. "Does anyone want to share anything today?" I stayed silent. Not for one meeting, but for 3. I just sat, listened, and recognized myself in other people's stories. Sarah talked about a husband who controlled every dollar in their accounts. Maria talked about being isolated from her family for 10 years. Jessica talked about gaslighting, when you start doubting your own memory. Each time someone spoke, it felt like pieces of my life were falling out of the dark. I didn't feel it's only me anymore. By the 4th meeting, I don't know why, but when Rachel asked, I heard myself say, "My name is Nyla." My voice shook, like I was practicing a name that hadn't been spoken correctly in a long time. My ex-husband gave me a bracelet. He said it was good for my health. But it made me weaker and weaker. And when I found out, I realized the bracelet was just the surface. What he really needed was control over my entire life. I told it, no poetry, no pretending I was fine. I told it like someone had opened a valve and finally allowed herself to pour out. And strangely, I didn't feel ashamed. I just felt lighter. After the meeting, Sarah came over and hugged me. She whispered, "Thank you for saying it out loud. I thought abuse had to be punches." But it turns out, sometimes it's gifts. It's concern. I nodded, tears sliding down before I could stop them. Yeah, sometimes abuse looks a lot like love. Not long after that, Vanessa introduced me to a therapist, Dr. Patricia Chen. In our first session, Dr. Chen didn't dig into the past. She only asked, "Nyla, what are you experiencing right now?" I sat still for a moment, then admitted the thing that scared me most. "I'm free, but I'm lost. For 2 years, Quentin decided everything. Now I have the right to choose, but I'm terrified of choosing wrong. Dr. Chen nodded, like she'd heard that sentence many times. That's a normal response after a long period of control. What you're experiencing is called learned helplessness. When someone has been trained to obey for too long, they forget how to trust their own instincts. I whispered, I feel like I lost part of who I am. You didn't lose it, Dr. Chen said, leaning toward me. It's just buried. Our job is to dig it back up, slowly. In the months that followed, I saw her every week. We relearned things that seemed like everyone should know: what boundaries are, what self-worth is, what warning signs look like. And then Dr. Chen finally named the thing that had confused me for so long: trauma bonding. A bond formed through trauma. That's why sometimes you still miss Quentin, even though you know he harmed you. I looked up. Missing him doesn't mean I'm wrong. No, it just means your brain was trained in a cycle of stress, then rewarded with a few tender moments, and your body becomes addicted to that up and down rhythm. I exhaled, like someone who had finally been handed a rational explanation. And from there, I began rebuilding myself through small decisions, buying the shirt I liked, not the proper one Quentin always chose, eating the breakfast I wanted without explaining, seeing friends without asking permission, turning my phone off and sleeping without fear of nonstop calls. Tiny things, day by day, became a foundation. I slowly remembered. Nyla was not Quentin's wife. Nyla was just Nyla. Work became the place where I stood upright again. I returned to my role as Vice President of Operations and threw myself into a project restructuring the company's document management system. My team had 8 people. The workload was massive. But strangely, I felt alive. Sterling Maddox occasionally called me into his office for my input. He didn't talk like, "I'm giving you a chance." He spoke as if my perspective was naturally necessary. That respect, after everything, felt like breathing clean air. One day, Vanessa invited me to lunch. She studied me for a long moment and said, "You're different." "How?" I asked. "In your eyes," Vanessa replied, smiling. That look of someone apologizing for existing, it's gone. I laughed, but my eyes stung. "I'm still scared," I admitted. "I just don't let fear drive anymore." Vanessa clinked her glass against mine. To new beginnings, I echoed. In September, I was invited to speak at a Women in Business conference on the theme, Overcoming Adversity and Reclaiming Strength. I wanted to refuse. The thought of standing in front of hundreds of people and telling my story made me shake. But then I thought, if my story helps even one person, it's worth it. On the day of the event, I stood backstage, my palms damp. When the host announced my name, my heart pounded like it might burst. But I walked out anyway. The spotlight hit hard. The room was full. I forced myself to focus on one face in the front row, a young woman, eyes wide, looking at me as if she were clinging to a life raft, and I started to speak. I talked about the bracelet, the control, how abuse isn't always fists. I spoke slowly, clearly, as if speaking to the version of me from the past. Domestic abuse doesn't always shout. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it doesn't hit you. It makes you forget who you are, and sometimes it looks like a gift. I paused, scanning the room. If anyone here is living in fear and wondering, am I imagining things? I want you to know, you're not crazy. You're not weak. And it's not your fault. When I finished, the entire room stood and applauded. The young woman in the front row was crying. After the talk, she came up to me, her voice trembling. "Thank you. You just saved me." I hugged her, and for the first time I understood something. My pain was no longer a pointless wound. It had become something that could pull someone else back from the edge. 1 year after I left Quentin, I sat in my new office on the 8th floor looking out over Philadelphia. On my desk was a group photo from the project. Next to it was a file. Divorce papers, medical reports, threatening messages. I kept them not to reopen the hurt, but to remember how I stood up. My phone buzzed. A message from Rachel. "We have a new member. She's looking for a mentor. Nyla, are you available to talk?" I smiled and typed back, "Of course, when?" That night, I met the new woman, Amanda, 32, her face so tired that I understood her the moment I saw her. Amanda said a sentence I had once said word for word. "He doesn't hit me. He just cares too much." I took her hand and spoke softly, but firmly. Caring doesn't make you afraid. Love doesn't make you smaller. If you feel trapped, controlled, stripped of freedom, that isn't love. That's abuse. She cried. I didn't rush to wipe her tears. I just stayed there, the way Vanessa had stayed with me. Driving home, I thought, maybe the best thing I can do after surviving is become a small light for someone else. And I started writing down the warning signs again. Not long, just clear enough that anyone could recognize them if they were living inside an invisible cage. When I saved the document, I looked at my wrist. No bracelet. No control, no fear at the wheel, just one deep breath. The breath of someone who has come back to herself. And I breathed freely without looking back.